Is it safe to travel to New York City right now? It's a question that feels as timeless as the city itself, because for as long as New York has drawn dreamers, strivers, and explorers, it's also sparked a measure of caution. And there's a reason for that. If you're old enough to remember the New York City of the 1970s and 1980s, you'll remember a place that felt like a different universe. Back then, crime was part of the city's reputation, sometimes deservedly so. Headlines were filled with stories of muggings, graffiti-covered subways, and entire neighborhoods that locals and tourists alike were told to avoid. The phrase, "the bad old days," isn't just nostalgia. It's a reminder of a time when the city struggled under the weight of crime, economic decline, and the sense that it was simply out of control. But the New York of 2025 isn't the New York of 1975. Over the past 4 decades, this city has transformed itself in ways few thought possible. Neighborhoods that once felt like no-go zones are now home to Michelin-starred restaurants, boutique hotels, and some of the most sought-after real estate in the world. The subway system, while still imperfect, is cleaner and safer than it has been in generations. Violent crime rates are a fraction of what they were in those turbulent years. I'm Stephen with the Travel Safety Network. For over 25 years, I've worked all over the world in industrial safety and risk management, helping people navigate environments that demand vigilance and preparation. And now, I've turned my focus to travel safety, because I believe that when you strip away the sensational headlines and look at the facts, you can experience places like New York City with the confidence that comes from being well-informed. Today, I want to take you on an honest exploration of what safety really looks like in New York City right now. We're going to talk about how much has changed since the so-called bad old days, what challenges still remain, and how the current climate, socially, politically, and at the border, can impact your experience. And stay with me until the end, because I'm going to share something about New York that surprises even lifelong travelers, a detail that might inspire you to see the city in an entirely new light. If you look at the numbers, there is no question that New York City has become dramatically safer over the last 30 years. Homicide rates, which peaked in the early 1990s, have fallen by more than 80%. Today, the city's overall crime rates are comparable to or lower than many other major American and European cities. That doesn't mean crime has disappeared. Far from it, but it does mean that the days when you simply didn't walk through Times Square after dark are over. And yet, safety in New York has always been about more than statistics. It's about the way the city feels. And the truth is, for most visitors, New York feels energized, dynamic, and yes, safe. Whether you're strolling the High Line, exploring the galleries of Chelsea, or grabbing a late-night slice of pizza, you're likely to feel comfortable as long as you use the same common sense you'd use in any large city. That said, New York has not been immune to the social shifts of the last few years. The pandemic, economic disruption, and a series of high-profile incidents have created a more visible population of unhoused people in certain neighborhoods. You will see more people sleeping rough in Midtown and around transportation hubs than you might have in the recent past. And while the vast majority are not a threat to anyone, the sight can feel unsettling if you aren't expecting it. Petty crime remains the most common issue tourists face. Pickpocketing, phone snatching, and bag theft happen most often in crowded areas, especially around Times Square, Penn Station, and the subway. The good news is that these crimes are usually crimes of opportunity. Staying alert, keeping your belongings close, and being aware of distractions will go a long way toward keeping you safe. Another dimension of safety that's important to talk about is the climate of protest that has become a part of American life in recent years. New York has always been a city of demonstration. From civil rights marches to anti-war protests, this is a place where people take to the streets to make their voices heard. In the last few years, demonstrations have become more frequent and more unpredictable. Issues like racial justice, immigration, reproductive rights, and climate change have all sparked large gatherings, sometimes at short notice. Most of these protests are peaceful. The NYPD is experienced at managing large crowds, but tensions can escalate, especially when counter-protesters appear or when police move in to clear an area. If you find yourself near a protest, The best advice is to observe from a safe distance or move away entirely. Even if you feel sympathetic to the cause, remember that as a visitor, you could be caught in the middle if things change quickly. Beyond the streets of New York, there's another area where travelers have felt an increase in tension, and that's at the border. Over the past decade, U.S. Customs and Border Protection has expanded its authority and tightened its screening procedures. You may be asked detailed questions about your plans, your finances, or your past travel. More notably, CBP officers have the legal right to inspect your electronic devices, including laptops and phones, without a warrant. They can ask you to unlock your devices and may review your emails, social media accounts, and text messages. For many travelers, especially those who are used to more relaxed border controls in Europe or Canada, this level of scrutiny can feel intrusive. The best approach is to remain calm, answer questions clearly, and comply with instructions. If you are selected for secondary screening, understand that it doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. It can happen to anyone, and the process is often resolved within an hour. But it is wise to have your itinerary and proof of accommodation handy to show your intent. The travel advisories from major governments reflect the same themes. Global Affairs Canada notes that while crime exists in New York, it is much lower than in past decades, and travelers should exercise the usual precautions. The UK Foreign Office highlights the potential for protests and occasional disruptions, advising visitors to monitor local news and avoid large gatherings. Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade echoes this advice, emphasizing that while New York is generally safe, petty theft and opportunistic crime remain the most common issues. One of the questions I hear most often is whether New York City feels safe for travelers who are part of visible minorities, LGBTQ+ communities, or who wear religious clothing. The short answer is that New York is one of the most diverse and inclusive places on the planet. You will see people from every background, speaking every language imaginable. In neighborhoods like Chelsea and the West Village, LGBTQ+ travelers find an open and welcoming community. In Harlem, Jackson Heights, and Chinatown, cultural identities are celebrated openly. That said, no place is free of bias or ignorance. Anti-Asian incidents rose during the pandemic, and there have been reports of anti-Semitic vandalism and harassment in some neighborhoods. For most travelers, these experiences are unlikely, but it's worth knowing that awareness and self-assurance go a long way in diffusing uncomfortable situations. For women, New York feels safer today than it did even 10 or 15 years ago. Public spaces are better lit, surveillance is widespread, and the city never really sleeps. But harassment can still occur, especially late at night or in isolated areas. Ride-sharing apps like Uber and Lyft are widely used and often considered safer than hailing a cab on the street. Health and hygiene standards are excellent. Tap water in New York is among the cleanest and safest in the United States. Food safety is also taken seriously, whether you're eating at a street vendor or a fine dining restaurant. If you have allergies or dietary restrictions, you'll find that most establishments are well versed in accommodating them. So is it safe to travel to New York City? The honest answer is that it depends on your expectations and preparation. If you come with an understanding of what New York is and what it isn't, you're likely to find a city that is vibrant, layered, and more secure than the reputation it once had. It's a place that asks you to be aware, but rewards you with experiences you simply can't replicate anywhere else. And here's the surprise I promised you. Despite everything, the headlines, the scrutiny at the border, the occasional protests, New York City continues to be ranked among the safest large cities in America when measured by violent crime rates per capita. That transformation is not an accident. It's the result of decades of effort, investment, and community resilience. I'm Stephen with the Travel Safety Network. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone thinking about visiting New York City. And stay tuned for my upcoming videos, where I'll help you navigate more of the world's great destinations with clarity and confidence. Until next time, stay curious, stay prepared, and remember, safety is your travel superpower.